Welcome back, everyone. I have a new product and installation instructions. This is the 97-01 Honda CRV auto to manual wiring kit. Let's go over the parts and I'll show you how to install it. Fortunately, Honda did make it a little bit easier for us to convert the CRV from auto to manual. But unfortunately, in some respects, it is just a little bit harder to convert it from auto to manual. On the fortunate side, the starting system is pretty much the same from auto to manual. The only difference is that the manual models do have a clutch safety switch and wiring to go with it. So that's not hard at all. A little depinning and repinning and you're good to go on that part. The range switch on the engine harness, that you don't have to splice. All you're gonna have to do is connect the connector that I provide and ground it, and that's it. In order to retain reverse lights and your cruise control, you are gonna have to do a little bit of joining, tapping in, if you will. But don't worry, you don't have to break out your soldering iron or anything like that. I provide everything for you to do it the right way. Enough chit chat, let me show you how it goes. '97-01 Honda CRV auto to manual wiring kit. Let's go over all the parts. Clutch pedal connectors, clutch safety switch at the top, cruise control at the bottom, cruise control wire stripped, terminal for your clutch relay, ground wire, 10-pin connector for the engine harness at the back of the transmission. This is going to go in place of the range switch. Reverse light harness with leads stripped as well. Now you are going to get a zip tie, some solder sleeves, and some heat shrink. Let's start with the easiest part of the installation first. This is a 10-pin connector which is going to connect to the engine harness that is on the back of the transmission. This replaces the range switch or the neutral safety switch that goes to the bottom and onto the side of the transmission. Simply enough, you're going to take this connector and connect it to the existing harness that you have. And then there is a bracket on the automatic transmission that held this connector in place. You can also remove that and install that bracket onto your manual transmission so you can hold it in place and so it's just not hanging. The last thing you're going to have to do is you're going to ground this. All you have to do is take this to the top of the thermostat housing where the engine harness is grounded and place it on top of that and use the same 10mm bolt to secure it in place. Additionally, you are going to be able to start the car and remove the key, so you're not going to have a stuck key in the ignition. Moving on to the driver's side footwell, you are going to have to remove the kick panel to access a couple of connectors. Now, assuming that you already installed your clutch pedal, you are going to have to connect these connectors. The top one is the clutch safety switch, the bottom is the cruise control switch. Now they would connect into these. Now after you connect those two connectors at the top, you are going to have to run your ground wire all the way to the bottom of the kick panel right behind it, and there is a junction of grounds that you are just going to ground it to that. And then you are going to run this terminal to this connector. Behind the kick panel, you are going to find your star cut relay, and you are going to find this connector. It is going to be taped up or tied up somehow to an existing wire loom, and it's going to be positioned in this way. Now what we have to do is we have to remove this looped wire, but before you do that, remove it from the wire loom that it's taped against and flip it over so that it's pointed right side up. It's not going to stress any wires or anything like that, so you'll be fine. And next, what we're going to do is we are going to remove this connector and remove that looped wire. This portion of the starting system is going to be left alone. This is all we have to worry about. So what we have to do is we have to depin these two terminals, and you can see that there is a tab that is holding the terminal in place. So what we have to do is we have to take a precision screwdriver, lift up on the tab, and remove this looped wire. You can see a little bit better how that tab is lifted, and all we have to do is remove the wire. Again, you are going to want a precision screwdriver, something small that can just fit under the tab and lift. The position that we're going to use for this connector is going to be the top position, okay? You can discard this. And the top position, because this is the wire that is going into the relay. And so we have to connect this terminal into this connector to communicate with this wire. Taking the terminal that is provided with the harness, just go ahead and slip it into the top middle position. You hear the click, and you're good. All you have to do now is connect these two, and you are done with this portion of the installation. Moving on to the part that is a little bit more involved. Again, not terribly difficult, but it is a little bit more involved. If you're going to keep cruise control, you are going to have to locate this cruise control connector. It's right behind the kick paddle with the cruise control module. What you're going to do is you are going to cut this pink wire only. Give it some length so you have enough wire to work with. And what you're going to do is you're going to strip it, preferably the same length as the stripped wire that I provide. And what you're going to do is you are going to install the solder sleeve along with your existing cruise control wire. Again, doing this with only one hand is not ideal, but we'll get through it. And that is what it's going to look like. Now, I strongly suggest that you guys have a heat gun, but if you don't have access to a heat gun, you don't want to go out and buy one. A lighter is going to be just fine. Just make sure that you heat all of the solder sleeve, especially the center. The ends, those have adhesive, so it is to keep water out. And unless you're going to take this thing to the river and you're going to submerge in water, you'll be fine. Make sure that you heat the solder sleeve in the center enough to where you see it melt the solder. And the good thing about these is that they do have some flux. These are Raychem solder sleeves, and they're not just cheap run-of-the-mill Amazon specials. So given all that, just remember, I strongly recommend that you guys use a heat gun, but a lighter will work just as well. Just make sure you heat everything properly. And again, especially the center to where you see the solder melt and just flow into all of the wires. After that, you are done. The other end of the cruise control wire that you cut, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to loop it like this, obviously with no wires exposed. Loop it in this way, and you can either take some heat shrink and slip it over, heat it up, or you can take some electrical tape and make sure you wrap it around securely. Last but not least, the reverse light wires. So what you can do is you can start with the transmission switch. You can just simply clip this onto the transmission reverse light switch and run these wires to the firewall, and then through that rubber grommet onto the interior. Second, you can run these wires around the EVAP box, and you can zip tie the green connector on the side of the EVAP box right here, and then run them behind the dash and all the way to the reverse light relay. The reverse light relay is underneath the dash, close to the ignition switch, pretty much under the cluster area. This is a reverse light relay. Now, automatic models use a reverse light relay. Manual models do not use it. There is going to be a bracket holding this in place along with another relay, but I removed it just so I don't confuse anyone on where anything is. Now, the wires that you're going to have to use are going to be the green and black and the yellow and red. you are gonna have to cut these wires, and like I mentioned before with the cruise control, just loop it around, tape it, better yet, even use a sleeve of heat shrink and just terminate it that way. The wires that you are gonna have to use are gonna be the opposite ends of the wire that you cut. So this is gonna be tucked away, and the wires that you are going to have to tap into are going to be the green and black and the yellow and red. And that is precisely why I provided this harness with stripped ends. Just as with the cruise control, you are going to insert the solder sleeve onto the wires, and then you are going to have to heat them up in order for the solder to melt and to flow. So essentially, you just have to set them on top of each other, insert the solder sleeve, heat it up, and that should be enough. Again, remember to heat it up enough to where the solder is going to melt. There is supposed to be some flux in there in order to make sure that the wires do join, that everything melts properly. The ends of the solder sleeve have adhesive and are watertight, so you're not gonna have any issues. So that is how you install the reverse light wires. Again, the relay, make sure that you loop the wires and you tuck them away. You're not gonna use the relay anymore. This is essentially gonna be wired pretty much like a manual, and that is the whole basis of the auto to manual wiring. So there you have it, folks. This is the last part of the auto to manual wiring. Please be safe. Make sure that you have removed the battery and that you are working in a safe environment. Again, I recommend a heat gun, but if you have a lighter, just be extremely careful as to not burn yourself or anything in the car. That's how you install the 9701 CRV auto to manual wiring kit. If you guys know someone, or if you're switching from auto to manual on your CRV or any other Honda that I provide a harness for, check out my website, C2specmotoring.com, again right there. And thank you for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, but definitely share it if you know someone who is switching from auto to manual. Until next time, be safe.